So welcome to the Master of Applied Economics online information session. Tonight I'm going to be basically talking about the curriculum, the application process, and hopefully just answering any questions that any of you might have. At any point, if you're wanting to ask a question, you can go ahead and either insert it in the chat function, or you can also interrupt me if you'd like. We have a fairly small group, so I'm not too worried about that. We also can wait until the end, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end that you might have if they don't pertain to anything in particular that is in this presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. So Ohio State University was established as a land-grant institution in 1870 and is currently the third largest public institution in the United States. So we tend to kind of float between the second and fourth largest public institution depending on enrollment in any given year, and it is located in Columbus, Ohio. We have almost 200 graduate programs at Ohio State, which means that not only are you able to kind of enroll in our program, but you might also be able to kind of brush shoulders with folks who are in a lot of different other types of programs, or potentially look at taking classes in other departments throughout the university. And then along with a large university comes a large network of individuals who are alumni of Ohio State. So you'll find over time, if you haven't been at Ohio State, that there is a lot of loyalty to the university, and it often can work well for folks who are wanting to network with other Buckeyes, things like that. If you look at Columbus by the rankings, a lot of times people don't necessarily know much about Columbus, Ohio. We are the 14th largest city in the US. I actually probably should double check that because I think I put that in here a little bit ago, and they might have released new rankings in terms of size recently. But we are listed by Forbes as the #1 opportunity city. We also are ranked in the top 5 for top cities for happiest workers, most budget-friendly metros, and then also one of the 20 best US cities for culture. So there is a lot going on in Columbus, Ohio. It is the capital city of Ohio, so if you're not from the state, there's probably a little bit more here than you typically would think. And I think something that is particularly relevant to graduate students is that most budget-friendly metro. We have a lot of the amenities of a large city, but without some of the negative parts of it. So we don't have traffic in the same ways that a lot of large metro areas do, and we also don't have crazy high cost of living. So staying here is pretty affordable when you're thinking about not only where you want to study, but also like how are you going to live in general while you're pursuing your master's degree. A little bit about our department. We call ourselves AEDE, so you'll hear me refer to our department as that. It stands for Agricultural, Environmental, and Development Economics, which is an overall term that kind of refers to applied economics. We have 20 world-class faculty currently. We are bringing in 1 or 2 new faculty this upcoming year. And so you'll see that our faculty kind of tends to grow a little bit at any given time, but we are generally right around that 20 mark. We're ranked among the top PhD programs for applied economics by the National Research Council. And while you're looking at a master's program, that basically means that you have access to professors who are the top in their field and are kind of contributing to graduate education in a way that is recognized throughout the profession of applied economics. We have approximately 75 graduate students at any given time, so our student to faculty ratio is right around 4 to 1. And you'll see right now, I believe our PhD program is about 50 students, and our Masters of Economics program is about 20 to 25 at any given time. So yeah, that's just a little bit about our department. I think you'll come to find if you come here that we are generally pretty student friendly. Our professors are very excited about interacting with all of their students and just kind of helping students be successful in the ways that they're looking to grow throughout their time in their programs. So moving on to talk more specifically about the program itself, the MAE curriculum gives students a toolbox of applied economics techniques that are going to help them attack complex quantitative problems. So you'll use econometric modeling, mathematical programming, you'll have a whole class on cost-benefit analysis, program evaluation, some skills that generally speaking are considered really valuable once you're out on the job market trying to find a position with a firm or an organization that very much values the skill set of being analytical and able to look at data and understand what it is telling you. The program is a joint one between our department and the economics department, so you are leveraging the expertise of two very distinct departments. Our department kind of focuses a little bit more on applied problems, whereas the economics program and department kind of tends to focus a little bit more on theory. So you'll see that there is a little bit of a difference between what gets taught in the econ classes through the economics department that you'll take and what gets taught through our department. But both programs are really well respected. They have great faculty members as well in the econ department. And generally speaking, it's kind of a nice combination of being able to apply the theory that you are learning to real world problems. Besides that, it is important to also note that when we were putting together the MAE at Ohio State, faculty were kind of talking about what skill sets are really valuable in the workforce, what are we hearing from employers. And a lot of what we heard was, we want students who have these quantitative skills, but who also have an understanding of economic theory in the background, because that is what really separates what our students leave with compared to someone who's in a straight data science or data analysis type of program. So a data analysis program will teach you how do you do all these different regressions and ways of analyzing your data, but an MAE is going to give you that, plus the ability to understand what are some of the different economic factors that are happening behind the scenes that might be affecting the outcome of what you're seeing in the data, right? So being able to give a little bit more of a complete story about what's happening and understand a little bit more about the background and context in which it's happening. Our master's degree program is specifically focused on preparing students to go into the workforce after the conclusion of the program. So you'll see that if you're looking at different degree programs in economics, a lot of them will have you do research theses and focus a lot more on just academic research in general. That is not the focus of this program. So if you are really interested in going on for like a PhD in applied economics, I don't know that I would necessarily tell you that our program is the best fit for you. We would have to chat a little bit more about that to kind of understand what your goals are. But generally speaking, if you are looking to go into the workforce, this program will prepare you to do that pretty well. So I talked a little bit about the growing demand for professionals that have technical analytical skills and the ability to kind of understand this economic background in which things are happening. But employers are also looking for people who have practical experience applying what they're learning in real world scenarios. And we will talk in a little bit about how our MAE program does that currently. We have what we call the Huntington Project, where our faculty director, Abdul Sam, who's actually in the picture on this slide, works with students and partners with Huntington Bank in order to give students a project that works with real data given to us by our partners there, and working on just kind of predicting out and forecasting different things that they need to know in order to best inform their business practices. So students are getting some real world experience while they're with us. And then it just kind of gives students the ability to look at how decision-making processes are happening in both public and private sectors, and be able to kind of immediately contribute to their organization by being able to ask, critical questions when they get there about why are we doing this, or, how is this driving these different factors that we're looking at. So we definitely want to stress that the MAE is meant to be incredibly practical in its scope and help students to be able to contribute immediately to their organizations that they're hired into. In terms of the curriculum, you'll see listed in the box on top our required courses for all MAE students. And then in that second box underneath, you'll see our elective courses. So in your first semester, if you're going full-time with us, you'll see that your first semester is going to have Economics 6711, which is the survey of microeconomics. You'll also take Survey of Mathematical Methods in Economics, which is that 6700 class. And then you'll take AEDE 6110 and 6330. That's your first semester here while you're with us. You would then also take one elective course, which you would be able to choose from that list below. The next semester, oh, somehow I don't have a next semester. Oh, just kidding. It is right here. Sorry. So in your spring semester, you'll take 6721, Survey of Macroeconomics, and then AED Econ 6120, which is an Applied Quantitative Methods course. You'll also have 2 electives in that spring semester, and all of that curriculum together is the entirety of the Masters of Economics, of Applied Economics program. You will be required, like I mentioned, you'll have 3 elective courses. 2 of those courses must be at the 6,000 level or above. I'm sorry if it sounds a little bit noisy over here. We're having some pretty strong wind, strangely enough, outside. But you would either have to take 6,200, 6,300, 6,400, 6,731, 2 of those. And then the other course that you take can be at either the 6,000 level or the 5,000 level. It is important to note that we are looking at a potential curricular change for this upcoming fall. We're kind of in the middle of figuring it out. AED Econ 6300, which is one of those 6,000 level elective courses, might be taken offline, and in its place would likely be a course that is more advanced econometric techniques and working with big data, kind of having a focus on working with big data. So we're really excited about that. That is something that a lot of our students have been asking for. And because we are excited about helping our students be successful, you know, we're tapping into the expertise of our faculty member, Leah, who really loves econometric analysis and machine learning techniques and things like that. So she's hopefully going to be teaching a course that will kind of give students the opportunity to learn those skills before they are out in the workforce. In terms of employment opportunities, we see that our students go to a lot of different places once they leave us. Many of them will go into the banking or financial industries or like insurance, things like that, looking at risk management. Oh, I see the chat function over here is beeping at me. I will talk about the Huntington Project in a minute so that everyone can hear a little bit more about that. So I will circle back to that question that is being asked about the Huntington Project and whether it's tied to a specific course or not. But yeah, we'll see a lot of students will go into banking or financial industries, insurance. We've also had students who end up in government administration. So for instance, Nathaniel Kramer, who's actually pictured on the slide, he's one of our alumni and he works for Ohio Medicaid right now, kind of looking at, you know, how are they best investing things and making sure that they're hedging their risk when they're talking about Medicaid's like investments and things like that. You also will see students go into different areas that are very much tied to risk management and policy performance assessment. So looking at how are things going and what can organizations be doing to improve performance in different products or service sectors. Overall, very heavily data analysis based types of positions in general. We did have a question about the Huntington Project and whether or not it is tied to a specific course that students take. So I will talk about that and go back to this slide that shows the coursework. So in your fall semester, you'll be taking 6110, Applied Quantitative Methods, and that will kind of give you an introduction to regression analysis and different types of tools that you can use in order to better understand what's happening in your data. 6120 is going to then be like the next step in in taking that further, and that is the course in which the Huntington Project is done. So in 6120, you will learn for a couple of weeks a new software package. I can't remember if it's SATA or R off the top of my head. I think it is SATA. And so students will start learning that software package so that that way you're not just like going straight into a project and trying to use something that isn't possible for you. But then Abdul will bring in the folks from our Huntington Risk Assessment group, and they will basically give you the assignment for the semester of what they're looking to have you do. So students basically act as consultants for Huntington Bank in groups of 3 to 4 students. And throughout the semester, you'll have different meetings with the Huntington group. So I think this year they're meeting up 4 times during the semester for that the students to be able to say, here's what we've been working on, here's where we're going, this is what we're thinking about. And the Huntington folks on that team will give them some feedback and some other things that they might want to think about while they're going through that project. And then the students will kind of take that off on their own and go continue to work on it until they have their next meeting. At the end of the semester, there is a big presentation where each group will get up and kind of present their ultimate finding in the model that they've created that will help forecast out whatever it is that Huntington is wanting to look at. Examples of things that they've looked at in the past were CD investment accounts, savings balances in different types of savings accounts, things like that. But students will end up presenting that to the Huntington folks and just getting a little bit more feedback from them. But in general, we've had really, really positive things that Huntington has come and said about our students after the fact. And Huntington, proof is in the pudding. Huntington has hired, I think, 3 or 4 of our alumni. One was hired into that group, which is like a really, maybe even 2 students actually into that specific group, which is a pretty intense group to work for in terms of the level of modeling that they do for a lot of things. And there is another group in Huntington that also does a lot of modeling, but it focuses on some other different things. And from what I understand, it's not quite as intense on the modeling side of things, but they are still doing a lot of work of trying to forecast out different options. And both of those groups have hired our students straight out of the MAE program. So we take that as a positive that they're seeing the value of what our students are learning in the class, and that class can really act as a networking tool for our students who might be really interested in working for a group like Huntington. In terms of where our alumni are going, you'll see that most of our students are ending up in private industry. We do have some students that choose to continue their education, whether that be in like an MBA program, or we've had some students who have gone on to do a PhD program. So like I said, our goal is not necessarily to prepare students to continue on in education, but occasionally that does happen. And a lot of times the skill set that they've learned in our department might actually prepare them decently well for the type of analysis that they might need to do in their PhD program, depending on what type of program that is. Some of where our alumni are going, you'll see kind of here. We have modeling analysts, we have research associates. We've had students who have gone on to be data process engineers. Root Insurance has 2 of our folks there now. One just got promoted and kind of oversees a team of 6 or 7 different people, and someone that he knows from the program got hired in shortly after he arrived there and works for him now, right? So we have a lot of students who are kind of making connections, not only with each other and with the Huntington Bank folks, but it is interesting to see how they keep in touch and how people tend to kind of migrate throughout positions as time goes on. It is worth mentioning that if anyone here is an international student, the MAE program does provide you with the 2-year STEM OPT extension because it's considered a STEM program. So if that is of interest to you or in any way, shape, or form relevant, that is something to keep in mind as well. The average salary coming out of the MAE program is $71,000. there is a pretty big spread. I'll be honest with you, most of them are above 71,000, but we occasionally have someone who will take a job with a place that pays less, but maybe gives them more equity, so their paycheck is not necessarily indicative of the entirety of their compensation, monetary compensation that they receive from going to that organization. Just a heads up. So if you've been listening to this and you're like, you know what, that actually sounds like a pretty cool program. I'm interested in thinking about what to do in order to go through the admissions process. We'll just chat about that for a little bit. We have suggested MAE requirements. They are not necessarily completely firm. There are some hard cutoffs at which we become a lot more dependent on the graduate school at Ohio State to approve a student for admission. But generally speaking, we like to see a student who has a 3.1 undergraduate GPA out of a 4.0. We do like to see that your GRE scores are about at the 50th percentile or higher. For us, we're not looking to make admissions for this program ridiculously competitive. For us, it's more about making sure that the students that we're bringing into the program have the ability to be successful. So we always are looking at all of the materials that someone submits so that we can kind of understand a little bit better about how that student is prepared for this program and whether or not we believe that they can be successful in it. You are required to have documented English proficiency if you are not from the United States and are considered international, and English was maybe not your first language. So that would be through the TOEFL as the main way of proving your English proficiency. And then we'd like to see some preferred courses on your transcript somewhere. So intermediate microeconomics is really helpful to have, as well as 1 or 2 classes in calculus and statistics, just to kind of know that you have a baseline foundation to start from when we start talking about concepts that are generally pretty quantitative in nature. So those are some things. Now, if you're looking at that list and you're like, well, I have calculus and stats, but I only have beginner microeconomics. Generally speaking, it's okay if you're a little bit weaker on one of the 3 of those, but if you don't have any of those courses, I would definitely suggest that you enroll in undergrad courses that would give you a little bit more background in those topics in order to ensure that you are on strong footing for starting out the MAE. The application process is not too cumbersome, I don't think. The application is available online at the GP Admissions website. You can find it underneath both the Agricultural, Environmental, and Development Economics link, and then I think there might also be a heading that says Applied Economics, but generally speaking, just look for our department and click through the Master of Applied Economics application through that mechanism. It's just a little bit easier to find and navigate. You will need to upload and send supporting documentation. So we do require academic transcripts from all of your previous institutions, GRE scores to be sent directly to Ohio State, and your TOEFL score, same thing as well, straight to Ohio State. So all of those things need to come straight from the institution or the testing agency that they're administered through in order to ensure their accuracy and official, to make sure that they're official per the guidelines of the graduate school admissions folks. You also will need to upload a resume or CV, 3 letters of recommendation, and a statement of purpose. So the letters of recommendation are submitted to us directly by your recommenders, and those letters of recommendation are only requested from your recommenders once you have submitted your application and paid the application fee. So that is something that often gets a little bit tricky for some people. They're not quite sure exactly how that process works, and they'll email us and say, hey, my recommenders haven't received anything that would indicate that they should be submitting a letter of recommendation, and then I'll look in the back end and it says that they haven't actually submitted their application. So just make sure that once you submit your application, you reach out to your your recommendation letter writers and let them know that you've submitted your application, and they should expect to see a request for their letter within the next few days. The statement of purpose, generally we just like to see some information about why this program is a good fit for you, what you want to do in the future, and how are you prepared to be able to be successful in the program. So shouldn't be ridiculously taxing to come up with that. Hopefully, if you've been thinking about grad school, you have been thinking about those items over time and can just kind of quickly put them together in a statement of purpose and be able to kind of express in a concise manner. Generally, we like to see a statement of purpose that is between 1 to 2 pages, double space. I would say if you're double spacing, probably go for at least like 1.5 pages to make sure that you have enough room to give us enough detail about your background and why you like this program and what you want to do with your degree in order for us to make a good decision on your application. Some important dates. The application is currently live. We do application review periodically throughout spring semester. So I know that Abdul Sam is looking at our first batch of folks from this past semester, and hopefully we will have some rolling admissions starting to come out soon. May 31st is the final application deadline. You will need to submit your application by the 31st, and you will need all of your other materials to come in shortly after that. So we're not gonna like cut you off at May 31st if like a letter of recommendation is still outstanding, but you're definitely going to want to keep on top of all of the application materials and whether or not we've received them. So transcripts, letters of recommendation, GRE scores, TOEFL scores, those are the things that you're going to want to make sure that you keep tabs on to ensure that the university has gotten all of those. I would say generally we're going to start closing out looking at applications somewhere in mid-June. So once you've submitted, if you submit on the last day, May 31st, you definitely want to be making sure that you're keeping on top of all of those entities to ensure that they're expediting them to the point that we need them to. Happy to converse further on email. Like I said, you can contact me at aedegradservices@osu.edu. Just a heads up to any of you who have been contacting me kind of on the side, like through my cole.681@osu.edu email. My email is going to be changing shortly, so if you're looking for an email to actually make sure that there's continuity, this would be the one to use. I will obviously have a plan for my cole.681 email, but it just might be easier for you. But thanks for joining me. Please let me know if you have any more questions. Feel free to give me a call or to send an email. I'll be more than happy to connect with you in whatever way I can and be helpful to you in whatever way I can throughout your application or decision-making process. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and go Bucks.